Are we ready? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Corporate Service Committee meeting, April 21st, 2025. Moved by Jason, second by Donna, that the Corporate Service Committee meeting be opened at 7:03. All in favor? Carried. Adoption of agenda. Moved by Donna, second by Steve, that the agenda for the Corporate Service Committee meeting for April 21st, 2025 be approved as presented. All in favor? Carried. Any disclosure or pecuniary interest and general nature thereof?
Yes, I'd like to declare an interest in item number 5. The solicitor, Christine Nickel, is employed by the same law firm that I am, as where I work as an independent contractor. So therefore, I am declaring an interest, a pecuniary interest, so that there's no conflict with the township or with the law firm, and I will vacate my seat.
Yeah, I'm gonna declare for 6A as well, which is the short-term rental, and I will be participating in any conversation, and it's based on the previous conflict.
Okay. For adoption of previous minutes. Moved by Steve, second by Jason, that the minutes of the Corporate Service Committee meeting held March 24th, 2025 be adopted as presented. All in favor? Carried.
Okay.
7:05. So presentations and delegations. We got Christine Nichols of Thomas Davis Law Firm regarding proposed bylaws.
Good evening, councillors and residents of Bonfield. I'm Christine Nickel with Thomas Davis Law. I'm here today representing clients who are concerned members of the Bonfield community and homeowners alike. We have concerns about several provisions of the proposed bylaws and their impact on property rights of landowners under Ontario's Planning Act 1990, hereinafter the Planning Act, as well as the Provincial Planning Statement 2024, hereinafter the PPS, which seeks to support and protect the long-term viability of rural areas and the need for mixed housing options, page 1 and 7 of the PPS. We must also acknowledge the purpose of section 14(1) of the Municipal Act. This ensures that municipal bylaws do not override or contradict supreme laws and regulations made by provincial acts, such as the Planning Act, therefore maintaining a consistent legal framework across different levels of government. In particular, we would like to address the use of existing buildings and structures, exclusionary zoning, the distinction between conforming and non-conforming uses, short-term rentals, and travel trailers / recreational vehicles. So first, I'd like to bring your attention to the use of existing buildings, incorporating and focusing on bylaw 2025-17, the short-term rental bylaw, as well as bylaw 2025-11, focusing on hunt camps, sea cans, and ADUs. So the proposed bylaws seek to regulate how certain buildings and structures already pre-existing on properties can be used. It's important to note that these existing structures in rural areas such as Bonfield often hold historical and practical value, and overly restrictive bylaws such as these could limit their utility and purpose. Many of Bonfield's residents have sheds, hunt camps, garages, trailers, studios, or other accessory units on their properties. Under the Planning Act, section 34(9) in particular, states that zoning bylaws cannot retroactively prohibit a lawful use of land, buildings, or structures for any purpose prohibited by the bylaw if it existed before it was passed, so long as it continues to be used for the same purpose. As such, if a building or structure is currently used for a particular purpose that use should remain protected, even if the new bylaw restricts it moving forward. It would therefore be deemed a legal, non-conforming use or building, which is permitted under section 34(9) of the Planning Act, as well as section 3.5 of the official plan, which seeks to avoid unnecessary hardship on owners. Existing hunt camps in particular are not only viable under current and proposed bylaws, but also hold immense cultural and social significance for the community and deserve the utmost protection. The absence of specific permission in zoning bylaws does not automatically prohibit a use, especially when it has historical precedence. As you know, the proposed bylaw 2025-11 aims to formalize hunt camps as a permitted use in rural zones on properties of at least 25 acres with a valid building permit. Under section 34(9)B of the Ontario Planning Act, structures with these permits issued under the Building Code Act of 1992 prior to new bylaws can continue their intended use. This is great as it protects existing hunting camps with permits, ensuring they're not arbitrarily banned outright. However, consideration should also be given to those hunt camps which are operating in non-rural zones and or without building permits to ensure historical and cultural continuance in Vaughanfield under section 34(9) of the Planning Act, as previously mentioned. The draft bylaws generally should clearly define how non-conforming uses will be recognized and handled, ensuring that property owners are not penalized for legal uses that predated the bylaw while addressing any potential conflicts with any new regulations. In particular, we are requesting that as per bylaw 2025-11, hunt camps, CCANs, and ADUs, to name a few, be granted legal non-conforming status if their use predates passing of this bylaw with minimal regulation thereafter. Furthermore, those located on waterfront with environmental or shoreline protection issues and considerations should be deferred. The considerations for same should be deferred to the Mattawa Conservation Authority for the regulation of same where permissible. Lastly, we request that ADUs be included in the residential limited services RLS zone under the proposed bylaw. We encourage council to ensure the draft bylaws respect these legal non-conforming rights, therefore allowing property owners to maintain existing uses without undue burdens. As stated in section 7.3.1 of the official plan, legally existing uses that do not conform to the land use designations may be zoned to permit the continuation of the use and may provide for limited expansion. We specifically urge council to ensure that the bylaws align with the official plan to explicitly grandfather in these existing buildings and structures and their uses to avoid penalizing residents for structures built and used in good faith. The second point I'd like to mention is exclusionary zoning in Ontario. So exclusionary zoning, as you may know, refers to bylaws that restrict certain land uses and often to maintain a specific community character or protect property values. In Ontario, it's commonly used to limit high-density housing, commercial activities, or short-term rentals in residential zones. While this type of zoning can preserve neighborhood cohesion, it can also restrict housing affordability and economic opportunities if applied too broadly. Vaughanfield, as a rural township, doesn't face the same pressures as a city like Toronto, and implementing these strict exclusionary measures here feels unnecessary and heavy-handed. Under the Planning Act, municipalities have the authority to pass such bylaws. However, they must align with the official plan and the PPS, which emphasize diverse and inclusive communities. We encourage council to use exclusionary zoning sparingly with clear justification to ensure it serves the broader community without stifling economic opportunities. Paragraph 3, I'd like to talk about is short-term rental accommodations. So here we're just urging council to reconsider the restrictions imposed on short-term rentals by the bylaws, given that the majority of the rentals in Vaughanfield are seasonal and for a limited number of weeks per calendar year. Most hosts of short-term rentals rely on their income for supplementing property costs such as property tax. We are therefore requesting that no license be required for legal non-conforming use short-term rentals and different treatment be provided for same. For many, the cost of short-term rental license alone is enough for people to not continue to rent, as well as other onerous operating requirements and regular inspection requirements. We encourage council to reconsider the license requirement fee and reduce same to a more proportionate amount. For example, the licensing fee be based on a per room cost basis, as done in other municipalities. This seems more in line with the income generated from these types of properties and the license fee imposed. As for inspections of short-term rentals, we request that they be performed biannually or every 4 years, as implementing and enforcing complex short-term rental bylaws in a small rural municipality like Bonfield is resource intensive. Research from other Ontario municipalities indicates that regulating short-term rentals often requires increased bylaw enforcement staff and consulting firms costing tens of thousands of dollars. Bonfield's small tax base and limited staff make burdensome bylaws unsustainable, diverting resources from other priorities like infrastructure. Simpler solutions like voluntary compliance or education are more feasible. We request that the licensing and other requirements such as occupancy limits, i.e. 2 persons per bedroom, and enforcement be reasonable and commensurate to the township of Bonfield. The bylaw should also ensure fairness, as these new regulations may serve privileged interests rather than the broader local community. Can council specifically please clarify section 2.23 of the short-term bylaw requiring commercial general liability insurance as opposed to residential insurance? Will property owners of short-term rentals be required to incorporate? Paragraph 2 under section 4.2.2 of the short-term rental bylaw, can council confirm that the application fee paid for a license would be refunded if the dwelling unit does not pass the licensing requirements? And the last point here for short-term rental bylaw is, can council please review section 2.1.15 with respect to only one short-term rental accommodation on property to permit that to 2 or more, especially for the legal non-conforming use properties, as well as the capacity limit of 2 person per bedroom to permit more if other accommodations are in place to host guests comfortably. The last point in regard to short-term rental is that we urge council to include flexible guidelines for special events, balancing community vibrancy and economic prosperity with practical limits on noise, parking, and infrastructure impacts, which the existing bylaws currently address. It can be a slippery slope when overly strict bylaws are used in governing how owners operate their own personal private property without any clear limits or guidelines on this. The next section I'd like to speak to is travel trailers and recreational vehicles, being bylaw 2025-16. So the draft bylaw unfairly limits and even prohibits the use of travel trailers and other recreational vehicles on rural private property. These restrictions infringe on personal freedom, economic opportunity, and practical land use. And I'll outline 3 key reasons why such bans are misguided.
Excuse me, Christine,
Yes.
just sorry. I'm pretty sure Nikki told you only had a 10-minute time window.
Okay, yeah, so I
You're-
wasn't sure just because I'm representing 4 individuals, if it would be a little bit longer. Okay, I'll wrap it up then.
Okay.
The Planning Act permits land use regulation, but does not mandate micromanaging personal property. Section 1.3 and 3.3 of the travel trailer bylaw outright prohibit any claims for legal non-conforming uses of trailers that may exist and predate the passing of the bylaw, which goes against section 3.49 of the Planning Act. With respect to section 3.10, we're just asking that the 2-week period for multi-trailer use be extended to a minimum of 4 weeks or more, and that the outright ban under section 3.15 be removed, and council consider the permitted use of travel trailers as short-term rental options for those currently in use and predating the bylaw. With respect to travel trailers on vacant lands and waterfronts, we respect council to reconsider banning same given their prior use and minimal disruption. In conclusion, Bonfield's draft zoning bylaws are a chance to shape the township's future thoughtfully. We urge you to refine these bylaws with a focus on the Planning Act and the unique characteristics of the properties in Bonfield. We recommend at least 6 months be provided for the above necessary input and meaningful discussions to take place. Bonfield should remain a place where people feel heard, welcome, and ultimately a place they can live freely and call home. Thank you.
Thanks. Good.
So Christine, could you send me the copy of the letter that you read? Because it's different
one.
from the
Sure,
copy
of
that
course,
is
yes,
in our
definitely.
package that
Okay.
the committee had ahead
No
of time.
problem, yeah, I can
Thank
send
you.
that to you.
Thank you.
Any comments?
Well, I'll reserve most of my comments because we have discussion on all
Right.
of these later tonight. I will just reiterate that, you know, your interpretation of legal nonconforming is absolutely exactly what we've been reiterating this entire time. If it's legal today, once the bylaw is passed, it'll continue to be legal. That's the definition of legal nonconforming. I will just say at this point in the meeting that when the intent of the bylaw and the bylaws are to take something that is currently not prohibited and make it prohibitive, make it permissible, legal nonconforming is backwards in that instance. So it is currently not legal. We're looking to make something legal. Legal nonconforming works if something is currently legal, we make it illegal, and then it continues to be legal. That's legal nonconforming. Where this bylaw is actually the opposite of that. We're looking to make something legal in hunt camps and ADUs and sea cans, and short-term rentals continue to be. We're actually just looking to license them. So, you know, agree with your interpretation of that, and I'll save my actual comments on individual bylaws to later on the agenda.
All right, number 6, items for discussion, staff reports.
Okay, so from the March 24th Corporate Services meeting, the committee asked and council approved a pause on all of the bylaws. So there was a frequently asked question page on our website, and then that has been updated as the questions have come in. So you do have a copy of the updated frequently asked questions as well. That is on the website. So I'm not sure if you want to go through each one. So the first one is short-term rental on the agenda. Are there any questions regarding the frequently asked questions?
Do I need to leave?
You don't need to leave, but you can't participate in the conversation.
I would actually think it'd be helpful if we went through some of the questions, to be honest.
Okay,
Just so that everybody who hasn't had an opportunity to read it, maybe see it on the video.
is there a particular one that you want me to start with?
Yeah, it's a bit-
Sure, give me a second. It's downloading.
There's a few, I can, do you want me to read them all?
I think, yeah, I'm trying to be efficient in time, but
Why don't we just go through each one
Yeah.
for each section, and if we don't have any
yeah,
questions or comments, we'll just skip it. So if we just kind of read the question.
Okay. So the first question on the short-term rental was, what is the immediate necessity for the bylaw? So, did anyone have any questions about the answer on that one? What will the process for undertaking home inspections where short-term rentals are concerned?
no, I will just, if I can comment as we go through, you know, I think it's important to note that the inspections will focus on life safety components listed in regard to the occupancy of the building in the code. So it really is talking about handrails, guards, stairs, CO2 detectors, making sure that they are up to code and have safety for the individuals renting. So
Okay, so why is the registry of visitors required, and does it breach privacy legislation? So the registry of visitors will provide information to the municipality. It will help with our targeting for economic development on you know, who's coming and where they're coming from. The address and the location are the most important pieces so that we can target to those actual places. And if there are bylaw enforcement issues, then there would be a registry that we make sure that the owner has the registry so that if there are issues, they know who we can contact. The next question was gathering at short-term rentals, and does this section 2.1.6 apply when the property is not rented? So this section only applies to the rental of the short-term rentals. It does not apply to the private property owner. It's only if there's a rental, and that's just to Renters don't typically have the same regard for the neighborhood as a property owner, so there's no gathering. Next question is, why is the township limiting the number of short-term rentals to 50? So the township has received, and we've done some research. We know that there are 35. When we did the first research, there were 35 short-term rentals. We've heard that some of them are duplicate perhaps. So even if we say there's 25, then we're still doubling the number that we have right now. And it's always been communicated that if there can be a wait list, and if we need to exceed that 50, then that would certainly be looked at. But we do have housing targets that we have to achieve as well. And long-term rentals are scarce within the community. So we need to balance that. Next question is, why is the township limiting short-term rental guests to a maximum of 10 people? So most of the homes are only 3-bedroom homes with 2 guests per room. That's 6 guests. 10 should cover the larger homes that are within the community. And then it's just concerns for overcrowding, septic systems, number of cars. And it goes into a septic system is made for a certain number of people. So based on the occupancy of a house. What do the fees include? And they appear to be high. So the fee for short-term rentals includes 3 inspections, the processing of the applications, and then enforcement as well. So the short-term rental program is meant to be self-sufficient and not a tax burden to the general public, to the residents. The next one is, can the township provide the signage for private roads, access, and waterfront only properties? But we see this more as a great way to brand their property, and each brand would be different, so the owner can create their own. So those were the questions on short-term rentals, and then there were suggestions and recommendations as well. So one of the questions, just in general, they apply to short-term rental and trailer. So we'll go through them once for short-term and then once for trailer as well. So can there be a grace period for implementing the short-term rental bylaw? Can the fees for short-term rentals be reduced? And can there be a lesser fee for annual renewals? So that is the information and feedback we've received on short-term rentals.
For discussion now?
Yeah.
Why don't you just start? Oh, you're
You're,
not included. Yeah, so I don't know. Sorry. I don't know if anybody else has.
So, yeah, I think the only thing that, we've worked on this for 2 years. We try to find a happy medium. We put a lot of time and effort into this. Since putting it on pause, I haven't heard a whole lot about short-term rentals. I've heard more about some of the other issues. The only thing that I have heard is a few families that only rented out for a few weekends a year. I don't know how, we would be able to divide those up. I don't know how we'd be able to enforce it or keep track. But that to me does make sense, that if I bought a cottage for, if I lived somewhere else and bought a cottage up here and let my family use it for, 10, 12 weekends a year, but it's family. And when we weren't using it, rented it out for 2 or 3 weekends a year, obviously paying for the whole 6-month thing is not going to be feasible for those type of instances. I don't know if other people feel the same way, that we want to look at maybe having a 14 days or less fee versus a 15 days to 120 days or something like that.
it'd be hard to track it though.
Yeah,
It would.
how would we? Like, not that I'm close-minded to it. I just don't know how we would do that consistently and fairly.
And that's the thing that I've been thinking about as well. And, it would open it up a lot for people to be a little bit untrue about how they're running either their business or their family cottage, right? But it's something to think about.
I'm gonna just say it once. If you speak out again, I'll ask you to leave.
So, sorry. I would be more inclined to, and I guess this is a question of the CIO. So the $1,200 as per the Q&A is for the 3 potential inspections, and do we anticipate, and so on? Do we anticipate lesser inspections and annual renewals?
It will depend on the property. So the 3 inspections can be, if there's 3 included, from the discussions we've had with other municipalities, there have been properties that required 3. So they just started, 3 off the top was kind of the number that we felt was comfortable. You could reduce it. One is, they'll go and they'll look, and then they have to come back to see if, to make sure the handrails are up, or to make sure that the CO detector is working, or the smoke alarm is changed. So there'd be 2 that would come, theoretically. So you could reduce the 3rd inspection, and just if a 3rd one is required, then the applicant would have to pay for that separately. And we base the inspection, on the cost, which would be about, it's $200 per inspection.
So that's on the initial first inspection.
Yes.
On renewal, would you anticipate that same level?
No.
So in reading the Q&As, then would there be consideration of, the upfront, the initial is, $1,200, but on renewal could potentially be less if in fact we anticipate having fewer issues with inspections or the other issues that.
I mean, I'm guessing that they're going to get a package to be like, this is what you need.
Yes.
So there's going to be people that are super responsible and go through it all and make sure everything is done perfectly. But then there's going to be ugly people that don't, right? So I do like paying if you need it for that 3rd inspection, or a 4th or a 5th or whatever, versus a flat fee for everybody, because some people are going to do their due diligence and hire professional contractors and electricians and whatever to make sure that their property is up to standards, right?
Yeah, I mean, my only comment back to that would be with having one bylaw officer. After a 3rd inspection, if we still haven't got it right, at some point, when is it becoming too much of a draw on our bylaw officer to have to go back to the same property over and over, even if they're paying at some point? There's many other things that our bylaw officer and our building inspector needs to be doing, so.
Don't we have it in there that after 3?
Yeah, I was just speaking to Council Featherstone's point.
But like to see Uncle's point of maybe you reduce it, that it includes 2, and if you have to pay for your 3rd, and then after 3, if you don't have it up to snuff, then you just don't get your.
Yeah, and I'm okay on that in the first. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I guess the point I was making is year 2, 3, 4, 5. Once this is like an established short-term rental, I mean, I would hope the vast majority would be one quick, look inspection and move on. So like just to the question, I mean, if we're gonna consider questions, can there be a lesser fee for annual renewals? I mean, I guess I would look at CO Kunkel. I mean, if we're looking at the answer for us to our cost recovery, which is what we're basing our fees on, do we look at it at a renewal fee versus the initial fee for short-term rentals?
That's certainly a good opportunity, and I would put at least 1 inspection in the renewal, just to make sure that everything is still compliant. And then the application process, assuming all the information is already in a database, that will be less as well. So you could reduce it substantially.
What would the number be though?
Yeah, what is that cost recovery? Like, what is 70%? So we always shoot for about a 70% cost recovery so that the general taxpayer is not paying the full fee of that. So if it's a 70% cost recovery on the 1 inspection, and sorry, I gotta find the right question here, right listing.
You could do 650 to 700
On the renewal?
on a renewal. 700 is probably closer to that loss recovery, but
It's kind of the number I was thinking.
we were looking for 100% cost recovery,
Yeah,
not
because-
70% on short term,
Because it's not,
Right.
on both of the licensing programs.
But again,
Yeah.
this comes down to the property owners. If I'm actually renting it out full weeks,
Mhm.
the majority of the time, 700 versus 1,200 means nothing to me.
I get it, but this is
That's fine.
where perhaps if they're doing it less times, like, again, if this is a cost recovery exercise and it's not only a cost recovery exercise from a fee, but it's also to make sure that we have the appropriate rules in place, that there's
100%.
contact information. If somebody needs to be contacted that night, that there's a responsible owner or representative. We would continue to have all of that. That really is, maintaining the integrity of our neighborhoods is really the heart of this.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the upfront higher fee to get like the first time. And if it's a renewal, we look at a reduced, and sure, if somebody's doing it fewer weekends, maybe that's the way that, yeah, if you're renting it all the time, little bonus for you because you're paying a lesser fee. But hopefully that would help those that are renting it less. The fee is now $700 instead of $12. I mean, that's $500 extra. I'm more interested, honestly, in ensuring that the integrity of our neighborhoods are maintained than the fee itself. Yeah, there needs to be a fee just for, as the general taxpayer shouldn't be upfronting that cost, but I really want to make sure that all the provisions for maintaining our neighborhoods are in
Sure.
place, so.
Well, that was kind of the whole point of this.
Mhm. So if we go, I mean, if it's $1,000 up to 2 inspections for your first year, and then if you need an additional inspection, it's $200. If you don't pass your third inspection, you can apply again next year if you like, but
Right.
and then if they pass within the first or second inspection, it's $1,000, and then every year after that, it's the renewal of $700. So $700. I think that's a fair compromise from what we're hearing.
Yeah, because like you said, all the data is we have the data and
Yeah, there's less
One-
to process for sure.
one inspection. I'm good with 700.
Okay. I'll save all the motions just to say that what changes you want to recommend changing,
Right.
and then I'll write them up.
Then on the questions, there was can there be a grace period for implementing STRs?
I don't understand the reason for a grace period.
Well, I think it's probably that if people rented last year and they've already started to rent this year, and now we're maybe a little bit late to the party putting this bylaw in, and people are already committed to maybe May long weekend or later this summer or whatever.
Are you saying that if they don't pass their inspections?
I'm just saying it might be a lot for people that own these properties to get everything done in time for maybe what they already have committed.
So I don't know why we wouldn't start this process immediately.
Get your paperwork going.
Yeah, get your paperwork going. If the delay is on our side from an inspector who, is maybe a couple of weeks out from going out to your property, that doesn't stop anybody from continuing.
Mhm.
You can continue to run your short-term rental right up until the point you don't
Either have it or don't have
or
it.
don't have it, right? So you get your third inspection. If you have not passed your third inspection, you are not permitted. You will not have a license. Then at that point, yeah, then the short-term rental operator would have to.
So if I own a property and I only rent it a few weekends a year, and I've rented it maybe 2 or 3 years now, and I apply right away. If we put this in, I apply it next week, and then maybe I already have it rented out 2 or 3 times for this year. Inspector comes out, I need to do a little bit of repairs to my property. I still have time to do those repairs while I'm still renting them out.
Mhm.
We're not forcing a hand with anybody. We
No,
just want to make
correct.
sure that the properties are
As long as,
safe.
to me, as long as it's moving forward.
Yeah.
So the key will be once it's adopted to get the application in,
Yeah, absolutely.
and then the process will start. But we will, okay.
Yeah, I think there has to be a period of time that the application has to be started
Mhm.
after the bylaw is passed.
Right.
But that, again, that doesn't stop things from continuing from a short-term rental perspective, they can continue to rent up until, well, they work through the process with the municipality to get their license. Or not, and if they don't, well, then that's a different story, obviously.
Yeah, I
But
didn't want it to be.
I would anticipate everybody's gonna get a license there.
Yeah,
I'm sure they're all,
I just didn't want it to be like, okay, we're putting this in. Now everybody has to be totally approved with their license
no.
before they
no,
can
no,
rent it
no,
out, because
I
that's
don't
not
think so.
feasible.
I don't think
Yeah.
that was ever the intent.
No, not in my head anyways, for sure.
So assuming there's 25, sorry if I may, but assuming there's 25 applications, do you want them all in within 30 days of when we pass when the bylaw is adopted?
I mean, that makes sense to me that they would at least have the process engaged and started within 30 days. I think that's a fair,
Because it's not like it's a surprise. I mean.
no, it's a
we've been
fair amount
talking
of
about this
time
for
to
2
say,
years.
please put your application within 30 days. Nothing stopping them from putting it in after the 30 days. I think the challenge then becomes how, it's the staggering of, if you're not in within the 30 days, if you miss that 30-day window, I think that's when it becomes, you can't continue to run a short-term rental all summer if you only put it in 60 days after we've passed the short-term rental bylaw.
Right.
If it's in within 30, that's, I think, a reasonable amount of time for somebody to be able to submit an application into the office.
If someone's not renting till September, they don't care about the 30 days. They can come in after.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The only other question that came forward to me, and I'm sorry, it's, so we list corporations as they're the last in the queue to be able to, where did we find the precedence to allow corporations to actually have short-term rentals within the municipality? Do we know? Was that part of our corporate services meeting, or was that
Yeah.
based on other short-term rental bylaws? Because I'm struggling to find a short-term rental bylaw that allows allows corporations, actually.
I think it was discussions, because there are corporations that have them, but we wanted to limit that if there was a corporation, that they could only have one, because we didn't want corporations to come and buy out
Right.
houses
That's
within the
And that's
community.
what they have,
Yeah.
doing around the lakes, or they're buying all the lakefront property.
Right.
up.
Yes,
Okay, thank you for the reminder on that. Yeah, the fact that it's limited to one in a corporation and not a corporation buying 17 properties in
right.
short-term rental. Thank you. Okay. That was the only questions I had.
Go to trailers, yep.
Okay, so again, you have the question sheets on your back. So the trailer bylaw 2516. People are increasingly choosing to live in makeshift accommodations, including sheds, hunt camps, and trailers. What will be done about this? So this is part of the bylaw. That I'll just read it, because the Township of Bonfield recognizes that inflationary pressures and cost of living are affecting everyone, and does not seek to introduce any unnecessary burdens on the taxpayers it serves. At the same time, the township has a responsibility to protect local residents and the environment from the unauthorized use of property, buildings, and structures which are not permitted to be used for human occupation. The development of unauthorized encampments in often unsafe and unsanitary conditions on parcels of vacant land and other unmaintained properties throughout the township poses a significant risk, health and safety risk to the occupants and the neighbors. Will a livestock trailer be a permitted use? So yes, a livestock trailer or any other form of trailer that is designed to include space specifically allocated for human habitation would be permitted on a property associated with an existing residence or subject to the license located on vacant land in the rural area. Where a residence already exists, is it okay to have a trailer on your property? And yes, so on your property, you do not need a license. There's no fee and you can use it. What happens if a trailer on my vacant land, but I'm not zoned rural? So this bylaw is only to permit the trailers on a rural property, per our zoning bylaw. Our zoning bylaw right now does limit that trailers can be stored on a property that is adjacent. So if you own a property and you own the adjacent land, then you can put it on that vacant land to be stored. And that's outside of the zone, but in any zone. But for the use of a zone, for a trailer, this bylaw only speaks to the rule. Can I have a deck in association with my trailer on the vacant land? And subject to obtaining the license, you are allowed to have a deck under 108 square feet. And there's one shed, again, under the 108 square feet. Those are per the building code. Because we cannot issue a building permit for temporary use on vacant land. There's no building. Trailers are not considered the building. So can I have a storage shed in association with my trailer? So again, yes, but it's under that 108 square feet. And the shed is considered still the accessory use, so it has to be in the side of the rear yard, depending on the placement of the trailer. So what are the options of managing human waste? There are 3 options: using an approved class 4 sewage system, using a trailer's manufactured onboard sewage tank, and providing an agreement for sanitary disposal company to properly dispose of it, and using an outhouse and a gray water system complying with the building code. So class 1 outhouses do not require a permit, but class 2 for the gray water does require a permit from the North Van Manor Conservation Authority. What fees apply to trailer licenses? So the fees for a trailer in an approved zone are $600 per year and $10 for 10 days once per year for that occasional permit. This covers one site visit to the property, processing, and the approval of the application. It's important to note that vacant land taxes are typically 1/3 of the taxes of a property with a dwelling. So the fee also includes making sure that all residents contribute to the municipal services fairly. So why is there a limit for 1 trailer per property? So the comprehensive zoning bylaw right now states that you can have the storage of special vehicles, which includes the boats, the trailers, and the snowmobiles and ATVs. Trailers, you are allowed to have 1, but it's only for storage, it's not for use. And then the comprehensive zoning bylaw will be reviewed as soon as the official plan is adopted with the ministry approval. And at that time, regulations such as the number of items on a lot can be reviewed. But the proposed bylaw remains consistent with the existing bylaws that we have. We also had a question about why 9 meters, a trailer of 9 meters, and that's specifically stated in the comprehensive zoning bylaw. So that bylaw is not intended to be changed until, like, as a mass overview, until after the official plan is done. So the proposed bylaws right now are to just get out some of our rules current. Has the definition of trailer been revised since 2012? So 2012 is the comprehensive zoning bylaw. It does state that trailers can be stored, but they were never planned to be for use on the property. Bylaw 2018-06 did further amend that bylaw, the comprehensive zoning bylaw. So the definitions are, you have to kind of read all of them together, but they essentially stay the same. But the updated bylaw 2018-06 still stated that there is no use on vacant land for a trailer. So why are the setbacks for trailers not in the trailer bylaw, and why are they so stringent? So setbacks are regulated under the Planning Act, and the licensing bylaw 2025-16 is under the municipal act, so they're different legislation. Setbacks for trailers are more in line with the regulations for non-residential uses, because again, we're not deeming trailers as a residential use. They're only for a certain period of time throughout the year. Can you better define use versus storage? And can I have a trailer as a storage shed? So per the definition of trailer and recreation vehicle in the bylaws, the intent of the trailer for those purposes are for temporary eating and sleeping accommodations. It's not intended to be a storage shed. The storage shed is considered an accessory structure and falls under a different section of the bylaw. What is the purpose of the special occasion permit? or the license, sorry, it's acknowledged that there will be times throughout the year that friends and family want to visit and bring their trailer for temporary eating and sleeping accommodations. This type of license is to permit that, but it also ensures there are not multiple trailers per property for the entire season. Multiple trailers on one property are considered a camping establishment and may fall under a different section of the zoning bylaw. So why are the rules not changing for the RLS zones? And the health of the lakes is measured by third-party agencies. Planning policies are adopted into the municipal policy documents. We know the lakes are experiencing more algae blooms and less oxygen from the reports that are on file. So essentially nothing in the RLS zone is changing. They just have not expanded any permitted uses until there are some additional reports and updated reports on the lakes. So we did contact North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority, and they did not recommend expanding the permitted uses in the RLS until those studies were completed. So the Planning Advisory Committee unanimously voted to recommend that to council, and council did approve that. So those are the trailer questions. And then the recommendations and suggestions again were, can there be a grace period? Can the fees be reduced, and can the renewal fee, can there be a lesser fee for renewals? And then there was another question for, can trailers be permitted on waterfront properties under a different licensing program?
So before I get into waterfront stuff, question 18, will the livestock trailers be permitted, will be a permitted use? So I've had a number of conversations with an individual who has a livestock trailer. And the question wasn't coming at the premise of wanting to use that as their licensed trailer for use for like as an RV. It's they have a livestock trailer that happens to also have a bunkie in it. So when they travel. So the question was more coming from, if they have an RV on their vacant property and they have a license for that RV, can they also have their livestock trailer on there as long as they're not using it as an RV and nobody's sleeping there, because it really is just part of that livestock trailer for when they're traveling. So
if they have an RV that's licensed on a vacant property,
right,
but they bring livestock with their trailer while they're there?
No, or yeah, just storage while they're there. It's not necessarily they won't have livestock on their vacant property. Maybe they will, but not necessarily.
So the storage would fall under that temporary shed, a shed. So it would have to be under 108 square feet. And I think that's a question for our building official.
Yeah. What about like boat trailers? So if somebody has a boat trailer.
So they are not currently allowed to be on vacant land.
Yeah. So if they have an RV that they have a license for, I think people are looking for a provision to say, a boat trailer, if they're up here for the summer and they have a boat in the water, putting a boat trailer on their property as well, it's not.
So you want to store more than just the RV or a camping trailer on the property?
But that's what the requests from individuals are for sure. I get it's super simple. We don't want to actually open up to have it being a storage, but there is, in my mind, a fairness value there where it's like, yeah, listen, I also have I travel in the summer with my livestock. I will have that on my property as well, even though I'm not using it as an RV, in addition to the RV that I have with my license. And I might have a boat trailer. Somebody might have a boat trailer. I think those are just general uses that would.
Yeah, a boat trailer.
If you're using your trailer up here and you want to go fishing, you're gonna have your boat with you.
Yeah, and the boat might stay in the water
And I mean, for clarity, if you have a livestock trailer at your residence, there's no issue.
Oh, no, absolutely
Yeah,
not.
just-
This is only
No, no,
property.
yeah. But just,
So we can come back to that because it's a great segue into the next point I had, which was where there's a residence already existing. So just for super clarity for everybody, there is no license fee. You get to store your trailer on your property 365 days a year. You get to use it as an RV between May 1st and December 15th. So those are the dates. So from whatever it is, December 16th to April 30th, it's for storage purposes only, because they're not made for winter use. So that's why that was just for clarity to make sure that everybody, we heard lots of that people were confused about that, so I want to make sure that that was clear. So, I guess we can come back to do we permit another trailer? Like a non-RV use trailer?
Yeah, I think we need to like look at the definitions and change it accordingly, right? Like an RV in my mind is like something that you can either drive or tow to live in, right? Like it's got
Yeah, there's
some, whatever. Whereas like a trailer for a boat or like even like a cargo trailer, like people have all these different things, right? Like you might bring up a cargo trailer to haul some equipment or
your
whatever, right?
ATVs
Like,
or your bikes.
So can you just put it one trailer besides trailer? Like
Right,
one
one non
non,
resident, I don't know what to call it, dwelling, not
Yeah.
dwelling, like
So now
sleeping
we're
use.
getting into the definitions, right? So we define a boat trailer, a cargo trailer to transport.
but if it just be simpler, we could say, one, I don't know what you're gonna classify it as,
Yeah.
one other trailer.
Non-RV trailer.
Because
Visible.
then everybody's
Yeah.
gonna say, well, they want, a
As its
four-wheeler
primary use, as a
trailer,
Like
Yes.
If you have a cargo, you could put a four-wheeler in it. But our zoning bylaw, our main zoning bylaw, so we have to make sure that we stay consistent with the
Right.
main zoning bylaw. Or as consistent as we possibly can. So in the main zoning bylaw right now, you can store, I think, 4 ATVs and 4 skidoos on a property with a dwelling. It doesn't speak to these other type. You can have one boat with a boat trailer on storage, but it doesn't speak to cargo trailers, doesn't anything else that's.
I mean, but I
mobile
think we
and
should
portable.
stay to those, because that's what you're using the seasons, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Four-wheeler, snowmobile, boating.
Yeah, and again, I don't want it to turn into a storage yard of everything, but if it's, I have my RV and I'm paying my $600 license fee because it's vacant piece of property. I bring my boat and I have my boat in the water and I have a utility trailer that, I just bum around my property and I just move dirt around with my ATV.
Yeah,
Like that's all totally reasonable use of.
Yeah, an ATV trailer, yes, is totally different than a trailer you tow behind. a
Yeah, like I'm
vehicle.
just, like if it's a small utility trailer, like again, I'm not wanting to bleed this out where all of a sudden
Right,
there's like
'cause-
15, 18 trailers and it's turned into trailer storage. But I'm trying to find the balance of what would people naturally want to do on their vacant piece of property when they have their trailer parked there in the rural zone.
I can look for what the wording needs to be, but in principle, if they were allowed to have one transportation utility trailer, so it has to be for transporting another vehicle. Then we could add that into one of the permitted uses. That
Yeah,
would work.
and livestock trailer. You'd have to add livestock trailer. to that,
And we
'cause it's
could
not a
add-
vehicle. Unless you call a horse a vehicle and then.
and then we're good.
It does get you from point A
Yeah,
to point B.
exactly.
And if we could in the application, if they could identify that, put a section in there that they would have one additional, which one that would be, so. Just to make sure, and so that they're aware that we're limiting it to one, so that it can't become a property standards issue.
Right, I mean, I think the four-wheeler trailer is kind of just, it's part of the four-wheeler thing, you know what I mean? It's not.
There are people that argue the boat trailer is part of the boat.
Yeah, but,
Can't get a boat here
yeah,
without a
but
trailer.
trailer's a lot bigger than a four-wheeler trailer.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Like what, I have the smallest utility trailer you've ever seen in your life. Will that count against like,
That's what I'm saying.
right? I mean,
What's going again behind your lawnmower and,
well, that's it, right? But I can also tow it on the road, but I use it behind my lawn tractor. Which, like, if somebody wanted to move some dirt around in their property or that kind of stuff, like that's,
yeah, I mean.
Can we
Wood chips.
specify the size of the trailer then? Should we?
I wouldn't
I wouldn't get into that. Nah.
But I actually think, so what if I want my ATV and my boat up there at the same time? And my boat trailer.
That's
needs
my
to-
point.
Yeah, so I think we need to say a boat trailer is okay. Game, what are you doing on a boat trailer? No.
Well, yeah, the boat trailers should be leaving at the end of season.
Yeah, so we're gonna have one of each,
Or
right?
stored with a boat on it. Because they get to store their RV on that property for the
Yeah,
rest of the
so
year,
they
so
can-
they can store their
But does zoning and planning follow, the zoning and planning don't follow that, does it?
The
No.
main zoning bylaw
can't
does not
store.
allow you to store on vacant land. So this will allow you to store one trailer, a licensed trailer.
Right.
I think a utility ATV and a boat, because if you are coming up, that's what you're coming up here to do, right? You want to bring your boat, you want to bring your ATVs, so.
Yeah,
Or your
I have no
snowmobiles.
problem with it,
Just
just,
then an RV, a utility slash our ATV and a boat trailer
Alex.
or a livestock trailer. Or
Yeah,
like that's
or-
or,
or-
or yeah. Like that's where I'm thinking it's gotta be like two.
Yeah,
So if you had an equipment float, right?
Yeah.
Are you guys like, this is all on vacant.
Vacant land,
correct?
yeah.
Correct.
what are we floating on our equipment for?
An
Equipment?
excavator to do work around your
But
vacant
if we're,
property.
Yeah,
but
but
if
it's not
we're,
staying there though.
but if we have an like an excavator, if we're building a house, then we have a permit, right? So then that you don't.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily need it just to build a house. I mean, you wanna make trails, you wanna cut wood.
So one, okay, so then that would take the place of an ATV trailer. then.
Well, no, because then that's a lot bigger of a trailer. Like now you're talking commercial,
Okay, so no,
so no commercial.
okay. Yes, yes.
But
'cause-
again, but then you're gonna fall into the loophole of, as soon as you put a yellow sticker on it, it's considered commercial. And you can put a yellow sticker on anything small.
So if I'm up with my boat trailer, or if I'm up to enjoy my property and I'm ATVing and I bring my ATV back and forth, because I wouldn't leave it on vacant land when I'm not there. Do we need to get into regulating that?
Not, I mean, not if you're not leaving it there.
Yeah, I don't, so.
Are they portable, or are you looking to have your livestock trailer that has the back and you're gonna store, you're gonna use that as a shed? Cause you're allowed to have that shed as long as it's under 108 square feet, but if it's a portable trailer and it's in and out as you come in to visit your trailer.
Then it doesn't even count, because
Yeah.
you're taking it back. with you.
Yeah.
Alex,
You just, my only thing is, I know how you're talking commercial, non-commercial, right? So anything with a yellow sticker is commercial. So if your pickup is even a half ton and it has a yellow sticker, then your trailer needs a
yellow sticker, that's what I'm
Whether
saying.
you're using it for personal or commercial use.
But-
So then you fall under the commercial side of things, even though it's for personal use.
And I get it, but it just, for us to try to enforce the rules, we have to not fall into the slippery slope of that.
So what if we
Right,
went,
no, that's what I'm saying, right?
so it doesn't automatically turn into a storage of trailers if they can't store it there over the winter. So what if they had an RV plus, I don't know, 2 or 3 non-residential primary use trailers?
Up to 3.
Up to 3. But they can't, they like from as of December 16th, they can't, those trailers can't be there. The RV trailer would be able to store there, but your other trailers cannot.
Again, as long as it follows zoning.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I think that would follow zoning.
okay.
That would still stay.
Yeah,
within
I'm
that.
good with that. Like, I think people should be able to bring their trailers up, just you don't wanna,
Then we don't have to get into like,
Yeah.
it's a this trailer or
Yeah.
that trailer. It's like,
Yeah.
as long as you have an RV and up to 3 other trailers.
Right.
But no more than your RV can stay there over the winter.
And your shed.
And your shed, of course, and your deck and all that can stay. But yeah, as far as
I think that would appease most people, because if people are coming up to enjoy the 6 months or whatever on their trailer, they're probably not leaving equipment
Right, four-wheelers and,
They're-
unprotected.
no, and I mean, we
For
want
the
people,
other 6 months.
Yeah.
we want people to come and, use their property. I
Yeah.
mean, Absolutely.
yeah. Okay, so, let's see here. And is, I have to get, I will jump into the waterfront properties in a second. I just wanna make sure.
Well,
I
I
don't-
got.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so I just want to clarify chemical toilets. Is that, that's
Com-
permitted? use, right? Is
Composting,
that the thing?
composting toilet,
Okay, or composting
a
toilet.
composting toilet.
Okay, but that, do we have to list that, or just want to make sure? that
I
that-
think if you're, when you license your trailer, you should, if that's what you plan on using, I think that's what you should.
Yeah. Okay, and then just for legal non-conforming is usually done on a case-by-case basis. And so right now, it's all illegal. There's no trailer permitted at all.
Correct.
On
So,
vacant property.
on vacant property. So how would I be legal non-conforming?
The only way, it would be a case by case, every property has to be reviewed. And we would be looking back to, we'd look at each property, what's on the property, when were the trailers made, when were they put on the property? How does that align with anything, if it applies to building code or not? And then when does it apply to our zoning?
Okay, and so the onus then is really on me if I've had a trailer on there. I did it in 2010. The bylaw was in place, so that is not legal non-conforming.
Right.
Okay, so,
Mhm.
and I would actually have to prove if I was before the bylaws that, and then on a case-by-case basis, we would determine how we're gonna prove that that was before
Yes.
When-
1992
Yeah,
or
say
whatever.
92.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to.
Fair, and then I've had several conversations with property owners who have vacant property on the waterfronts with trailers. As we all know, it's been a hot button issue in our municipality. Quite frankly, I do my very best not to throw shade on past councils or past staff, but for whatever reason, and perhaps it was just I can't figure it out, but the bylaws were not enforced consistently on our waterfronts. So there is the absolute right thing, which is follow the bylaws, and then there is what's the fair thing. So absolutely, 100%. If somebody in your instance put the trailer there when they in that time frame, they put it there illegally. I would argue most people actually didn't even know it was illegal when they put it there.
That doesn't matter.
It does not matter.
No.
But there is generations. People are now onto their grandkids. They raise their kids that go into this trailer. And now it's their grandkids going to this trailer. So I'm trying to figure out the fair balance to, we also hear homeowners on the waterfronts not wanting a high population of trailers. And then the environmental concerns, but really it's more lots of people concerned with the kind of the visual aspect of many trailers in the waterfront. So in conversations I've had with people, I said, I'm happy to bring it back to this table for conversation, is looking for a fair path forward, and whether that might be, do we look at a runway to allow people to keep their trailer? I would say it's a maximum of 2 trailers per like these are only the existing trailers, maximum of 2 trailers, a minimum of 75 feet apart, so that we can respect setbacks and we can get away from the really dense look of trailers on vacant property.
So sorry, 2 on rural and 2 on lakefront.
If lakefront and this is the zoning bylaw itself does not change. The trailers continue to be illegal on the waterfront. This is only for the existing trailers. No new net trailers on the waterfront. We should be encouraging sustainable growth on our waterfront. So, which is prime property, but to try and be fair to those people with trailers, if we were to look at a 10-year ramp where it's like, okay, so you could get a license once a year for a maximum of up to 10 years. Obviously, the license will be based on the fact that they're good property owners, they don't have a million other violations and all of that kind of stuff. But you could potentially stay there for another 10 years, which gives that property owner time to figure out what do they want to do long-term on their property. Do they want to sell their property? Do they want to build a cabin on their property, which is 400 and some odd square feet with like very limited services? You don't even have to put in indoor plumbing, and you don't have to. Do they want to build? Because we hear lots of people say, I bought this property and my intentions are to build. So that gives them a time frame to say, okay, I can get my affairs in order. I can figure out what I need to do to be able to build.
So what's stopping me from putting a trailer on my lakefront vacant property right now? It's not existing, but I'm gonna.
Nothing, you have a house.
No. I'm gonna run out tomorrow and put a trailer on there. So it's not, how are you gonna ensure?
Well, I think sure, we're about to be in a messy middle now. If we're
Yeah.
gonna say this, that between this and the date we passed the bylaw,
Yeah.
I think we have to give a window for, again, kind of like the short-term rentals. They have a certain period of time where they have to come in and put in that application, which would be the same as for a rural trailer. If they're not in within those 30 days, they've lost the window and they would no longer be.
What happens if you have to replace your trailer in this time?
I don't think that is a big, like, so I don't think that's a terrible thing, because at the end of the day, what we shouldn't be encouraging is dilapidated trailers staying there for 10 years. If somebody wants to
Yeah.
upgrade their trailer in year
expiry
4.
date's Not gonna change.
Yeah,
Right.
10 years is 10 years. I can tell you, as we know, this is a hotbed issue in the many homeowner, property owners, vacant property owners with trailers on the waterfront that I've talked to. They get it. They appreciate, it has been nothing but appreciation for our willingness to actually take the leadership role on this. And, you know, it's been nothing but fights in our community, back and forth on those waterfront properties. I've had follow-up conversations with the individuals that are on the other side of this issue. They're not super happy with it. They get it. They get the fairness. They think the 10 years is too long. I can also say that before the mayor had to declare conflict, she also expressed that potentially the 10 years may be too long for some people. That was she sent me an email. So, you know, but again, if we're looking at the longevity of a municipality, 10 years in the lifespan of a municipality, not a ton of time. 10 years of as property owner, so it's a chunk of time for sure.
Right. And I mean, a lot of these trailers, generation, like they're people from the resident,
But
from
so
the
if they
area.
are generational, do they need 10 years? Could we
Yeah.
do 8 years? Yeah. If
I-
I've
I
had my
like-
property for 30 years and I still am not sure that I'm gonna build on it.
Well, and right now, building rate in this time is not,
Yeah.
you know, it's not great. But I mean,
All
yeah,
right,
I
10
mean,
years.
I don't know. I agree. I mean,
Well,
give them some time to figure out what they want to do with their
Yeah,
property, and, you know, maybe times will get better in the world that you can afford to build.
okay, so just to be clear, there is a window that you have to sign up for the 10-year program,
Mhm.
and then there's no more after that.
Only if they're existing.
If
yeah,
they're existing, that's what I mean, that they'll come forward
And now is it $600 per trailer?
$600 per trailer
per year.
per year.
And do they, like, their septic has to be the same?
Well, no,
So
we can
sorry,
use
and then it's whatever.
Outhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
compost
mean, so
toilet,
whatever.
So whatever the
however
conservation
they-
authority would say.
That's right.
What they recognize.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if a cottage or what do you know, what's this other word for a small cottage,
It's a
seasonal
seasonal dwelling.
seasonal dwelling or a cabin was to be built, what is the requirement for a septic there? I believe it's class 1, class 2, or class 4. And if that's the rules for a cabin, then that should be the rules for a
Yeah,
trailer as
and
well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we always go class 1, 2, 3, and 4, but I mean, I think composting toilets are allowed. So we just kind of
Yeah,
asked Mattawa.
yeah, I think that's the conservation authority would be the drivers on that. It would be whatever.
It's
is
whatever
required
like they
for a
approve.
cabin, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, and so are there, and so what are we doing with the setbacks from the waterfront then?
so again, I think setbacks should be whatever it would be for a cabin or a dwelling
No.
or, I'm
What
trying
is it
to.
at 30 meters right now for a cabin? For a house is
Yes,
30
but
meters
you know
off.
what, that might be the same that we asked for in the trailer bylaw. The caution in saying the same as a house is we did say that trailers will not be deemed a residential use. So there's residential uses. I'd have to look at the main bylaw, the main comprehensive zoning bylaw, to determine what the uses in the RLS are to allow for the trailers to be in there. Yeah, so right now it is a 30-meter front yard setback, so that would be the minimum.
30 meter
Yeah,
off the lake.
Offshore.
and that is consistent with
Is there
the,
any trailer that's 30 meters off the lake currently?
I don't know, but those are the current rules.
Yeah, so
So-
I think we lose the good faith and somebody's got their entire setup done and we're gonna be like, hey, push it back another 15 meters.
Like,
So if you wanted to build a seasonal dwelling, you need to be 30 meters from the
Right.
waterfront.
and that's Mattawa's rules, not ours.
Yeah, and so now we're like, that's two things that we're.
No, that's if that's the If that's the minimum for a dwelling, then I'm not sure how to get around that. I
Yeah.
mean, it's unfortunate that if somebody's got their,
Being an avid kayaker, there's nobody that's 90 feet from the beach,
right.
right? Like,
So again, this is for that 10-year window and it's whether
Okay,
or not.
what if the trailer's not 30 meters back, but the outhouse has to be?
Oh, yeah, the outhouse has to be wherever the conservation authority would say it would have to be.
I mean,
Well, they don't regulate, they don't commit, they don't issue a
Oh,
permit
for a class one.
for a class
They
one.
don't.
So you could put that a
Yes.
class one would have to be 30 meters
Yeah,
from the.
I think that only makes sense. Nobody.
So it saves people moving their
stuff is.
yeah, it saves people moving their trailers. I mean, you can dig a hole a lot easier than moving a trailer, because some of these lots are not even, you don't have really that space to get 30 meters
Right.
back.
Well, then, how are they building a house?
If they're already legal lots, already building lots that were passed long time ago.
I mean, look at legal non-conforming, and then we have policies on that as well.
Yeah.
So I don't think we get
So-
super into messy on
No.
that from this 10 years. I think we actually just have to try and figure out that fairness. of-
Manage that, yeah.
So if we were to go this route, it's not consistent with the main zoning bylaw to allow a 10-year. We know I understand the fairness of this, but to allow that 10-year when it's not legal and it's not conforming, is there any sense, like, do they need to go enter into an agreement? Do they have to say what these are going to be, like,
Yeah, yeah.
that they acknowledge that this is
Sorry, I meant to say that.
legal
for sure.
non-conforming?
Yes.
And then again, because it doesn't match the zoning bylaw, so we're actually we're allowing, I get it's for fairness. Then I don't know how we can legally put this into a bylaw. But there are provisions for temporary use bylaws under the Planning Act, and they typically have a 3-year window and they can be renewed up to a maximum of 10 years. So if everybody came in within the 30-day window of adopting this bylaw and they applied and it was proven that they were on the property, they're not just brought in like from today to then, and it's proven that they've been on the property for a long time, they bring their application in, they enter into an agreement, we could do a temporary use bylaw, just as a 10-year period. Again, with the agreement with the bylaw, then like the use of the trailer does cease after that 10-year mark.
Per property, not blanket across all the.
You know,
land.
per
Right.
prop,
Thank you.
per
Yeah.
property. And then would you be applying this same principle to the rural properties that have 2 trailers?
I think we'd have, if somebody in the rural zone currently has 2 trailers, I don't know how we wouldn't.
As long
Fair
as,
is fair.
I
I mean,
guess, you can meet the 75 feet.
75 feet, like all the same rules would have to apply it. And then
Okay.
it's,
You could tweak it. I mean, rural is more land. We could set different spacing on it.
yeah, we can.
I like keeping it consistent.
Okay.
Yeah, just make
If we
life
could,
easier.
just, it'll be far less for, but then if I can, one more question. What about those properties that have more than 2 trailers?
So I think, in my opinion, in talking to all the other side of this, where people do not like to have trailers on vacant property, and there is an active voice on the other side of this. I think in respect to them, it's already a tough sell what we're trying to do, but I'm honestly looking to try and create peace in our municipality over this issue because it's been longstanding and
Yeah,
that it is a maximum of 2 trailers, a minimum of 75.
we're trying to
feet
meet
apart.
the middle on.
Yeah.
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 Steve, you had a comment?
oh, the 10 years, maybe it can be some sort of a staggered system. If it is truly that people had this trailer and eventually they want to build, there's a process to build them, right? So you would want to get your land surveyed or whatever, and then maybe your septic, and then maybe you have building plans and things like that. So maybe out of those 10 years, we can have, within 3 years, you have to have your septic plan done. Maybe within 5 years, you have to have your building plan done. Just so that people aren't just riding out their trailers to the 10th year.
But might
and then-
people
But they
and
might do
sell.
that and then.
And sell.
yeah,
And we have to be okay with that too, because
Yeah.
then maybe they're gonna sell somebody who wants to build or
Yeah.
is in a position to build.
But definitely, if they want to build, they're gonna work with the township and figure out their
Yeah, like
plan.
I don't want it to run 10 years and then they start this process, which is a
But-
multiple year
But the
process,
nice
right?
thing is that every 3 years, they have to
No.
renew, right? Look at the temporary, use,
Use.
the
A
temporary
temporary use.
use.
Or you could
bylaw.
just do a
Yeah,
standard,
no. we would-
because if it's every 3 years, it's gonna be a different council.
Yeah.
So you could make the decision that you're going to give a temporary use bylaw. And yes, I think, like, I still have to look at the legalities. I'm just doing this off the top of my head.
Sure, yeah.
But the next council might say, no, I don't want you to do that, right? So they can just reverse everything. But if you just do a temporary use, because I know there's a ceiling on temporary use, that you can just go straight to the ceiling and just say it automatically
10 years,
renews
Yeah,
And to be fair to,
to that maximum.
yeah,
yeah,
like
no,
my hope is somebody will develop within the 10 years and that'll
yeah,
shorten the window.
mine too. I guess what I want, Steve's point is, how do we remind them that the clock is ticking, right? And that,
But I think Steve's saying if they go 10 years and then drag it on, you can apply, when
Oh,
you,
yeah,
no,
no.
but like, when you come in for a building permit, you only have 1 year. Like, I think it's in our bylaws already. You have 1 year, you can have a trailer there, but you only have 1 year to build that house.
yeah.
Or a
yeah.
cottage or whatever you're building.
Right.
As long as there's work
And then-
progressing.
right.
It can extend past a year as long as it's actively being
And then
built.
once you have a cottage or a house there, you can have a trailer.
But after 10 years, we would just say no more trailers.
more
Well,
trailers.
that's why I'd like to see this incorporated into this 10 years, like. It's already not legal and we're giving people 10 years, like,
Yeah, but
you
like,
got a long time to figure it out, right?
what did, let's just say, yeah, okay, I got kids, and they're gone in 10 years, and I'm gonna sell my property then after that.
Sure.
So the next person who buys the property, then
They
9
don't-
years
they don't
and
get a
11
trailer.
months,
Yeah.
the next person can actually apply for a permit and put a trailer on there for the next year while they
While they
build,
build.
right?
Well, they build, yeah.
So, like, I think we're parsing hairs at this point. I mean, if somebody really wants to extend this to the 10 years and then gets a building permit, yep, good for you. Yeah, I guess you got 11, but really what we're ultimately getting is a dwelling or a cottage or something that is a legal structure on that property, which is smart for municipal planning. So I think that is, yeah, good for you. You got an 11th year or, but
The process.
but the process is there.
And-
And I'll just say this. The reality is if somebody was to build a seasonal dwelling or they had some level of an approved permitted structure on there, they can actually have a trailer like we could on any other. So if somebody really wants to build a tiny home, not a tiny home, build a cottage. Wow, we don't have tiny homes. Build a
Seasonal
cottage, a
dwelling.
seasonal dwelling. Thank you. Build a seasonal dwelling. And you can still have
That's right.
without a license at that point,
Mm.
right?
One
So,
trailer.
So yeah, you can get away with a 400 square foot seasonal dwelling,
Yeah,
right?
with
yeah,
no
and then have a
water.
trailer, right?
Yeah,
And then put a trailer with no fee. So there's plenty of options for people to figure out what they want to do in this 10-year
And
off
like
ramp.
gives them time in 10 years.
Absolutely.
but that does not apply. So, so in 10 years, this should not be a problem anymore,
Right,
right?
correct.
We're phasing it out.
Yes,
Okay.
because there's an agreement that's going to be signed that it is up to 10 years. So I think that agreement would state that it's an annual license fee, annual license with a $600 fee. Up to 10 times basically is what it's gonna be.
Mhm.
Yeah, you get some homework to do.
I do.
So if we can go back to vacant properties too. It says 108 square feet for
Oh, yeah.
Sheds.
Mhm.
And storage.
Isn't it 160?
Well,
Yeah,
we
it's
were
not
talking before
160.
about 160 so that we could have a C can.
And so a
it's-
C can would not be permitted. It's still, like, it has to be for storage, but we can't issue a permit or do anything. So our chief building official said a maximum of 108 square feet. Because it's a trailer is still an accessory, it's still a temporary use. So you could build, same with the deck, you could have 108 square feet. I know I'm
Because there's
making the
no,
point,
there's
whatever.
no structure there, so you
There's no
can't,
structure.
the 160 doesn't apply.
The 160 is an accessory structure for storage only.
Yeah.
So under building code, that wouldn't fit with the vacant land with the trailer.
So it would be
Because
not in
it would-
compliance with the building code, or is that an us thing?
I will need to confirm
Yeah.
that with the chief building official, but he said that because you can't issue a permit, and I know that structures, you can do storage, if it's for
But we
storage
don't need
only,
to.
up
It's
to
already
160
61.4.
square
Yeah.
feet.
So
So
like,
the-
what I would like, sorry, Dan, what I'd like to get into is if I had vacant land, and most people that have vacant land here have a ton of acres. I should be able to throw an 8x10 can on there, pay my licensing fee.
Or 8 by
8 by
20.
And,
8 by
or
20.
sorry, 8x20, sorry, and throw my lawnmower and equipment or a quad or
Because,
whatever I want for that property in it.
and going to that point, there's no building permit being, issued if it's under the 160.
Right,
161.4.
Mhm.
that's
So-
why, that's why I thought the
Drilled in
smallest
my head.
sea cans,
I can't remember.
I
seasonal
thought
dwelling, but
were
160
going to be permitted.
Yeah, because if you're under the 160, there's no building permit, so we,
Yeah.
we shouldn't
No, I
be
understand that.
limiting it to 108.
Yeah. That
Okay.
just, that makes sense to me.
I need to clarify
Yeah, you
that.
clarify it, I mean,
I think, I agree if where we're going is, unless it's against the building code, going to 161.4 square feet would make sense to me if as a,
you don't need a
as a
permit.
storage structure of.
It can
some
only
sort.
be used for storage. So
Storage,
it's
no
not like you
living,
can
no.
set up
Right.
Your
No, no, no.
equipment, you can't put anything in it. It is strictly storage. So that's gonna be a
So
little
what
bit
did you
hard.
say? You can't put anything in it? What was that?
You can't modify the structure.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah.
can't set up your furniture and sit in it.
Oh, no, no, no.
Like it's
Yeah.
strictly storage.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but I would have to check. And this would still only be with the
With the
licensed
trailer,
trailer.
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
It's not just,
Okay,
Yeah. At this point.
trying to get all the questions I think
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
get.
yeah.
Back to the questions, somebody asked if we can exempt the paint on shipping containers. And then the next question was if we can paint advertising
Mhm.
on it. If we want to touch
So
on
you
those.
just, are we just jumping into shipping containers now?
apparently Steve is.
Yeah. We moved on, or?
Sorry. Sorry.
I was done with
That's
the
okay.
trailers on the water, like trailers.
Trailers, shows on the waterfront. Yeah, I think that was all
Did
mine.
we touch on has everything been touched on that you wanted to touch
I
on?
think so. If I forget anything, I'm sure the chair will be lenient. Let me go back to it and ask my question.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Feel like there's something else for you.
If it pops in.
Yeah.
Sorry, do we have any questions about the 14-day?
I didn't hear any.
Just what was the purpose of the short term or the special occasion permit?
Okay,
I remember what it was, because there was a question as if we can reduce the $600 fee.
mhm.
And unlike short-term rental, where I was open to looking at if there's a shorter period, because somebody is paying property taxes, reducing the user fees, I was open to. Vacant property taxes, as you say, is 1/3 of the cost of if you had a dwelling typically. So if somebody's using their vacant property for 6 months a year, using services of the municipality, 6 months a year driving the road, it is not fair. And every property owner I've spoken to, and quite frankly, every trailer owner I've explained this to and said, it is not equitable to go to your neighbor who's paying $8,000 property taxes on the waterfront, which some are, and you're gonna pay, 1/3 of that without any extra, or even in the rural zone. Like, I think $600 is more than fair as an annualized fee. Because they are paying vacant property taxes, add another $600 to that. Gets them in the ballpark for what would be half of a property tax
And
bill for.
for people that say what services,
So
you
then
drive on
the-
the roads, you have landfill, like. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
You know,
The
Absolutely.
once per year now applies to the third trailer?
What?
No,
Well, aren't we allowing 2 trailers now
rural.
Rural.
in rural and?
Well, if somebody has 2 trailers in the rural, they can have the same 10-year agreement that they have 10 years to figure out what to do with their second trailer. I think after that, it's gotta be one. We're only one trailer. The only reason,
Okay.
We're just trying to be fair across the board.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see. So, but so that is, okay. So we're signing up for that as well, the temporary use to have the 2 trailers.
Well, then, listen, unless we don't want to make that temporary, unless it's just, do we care if somebody in a large enough lot has 2 trailers in rural? I don't know that, and like, gosh, if somebody has 15 acres of property and they have 2 trailers on it.
2 would be the max, anything above.
Oh, I
Yeah,
think that
under
is
a
to put it
camping
too much pressure, for
establishment?
sure. Yes.
It's a camping
Yeah.
establishment,
Yeah.
falls under a different section.
But
So
that's
do
what
you
I'm
want to
saying.
change it
So
to
then
2?
the 14-day would put a 3rd trailer on, so are you?
Yeah, but for the 14 days, it's a special,
Yes, so that's a 3rd trailer, that's all I'm saying.
Correct.
Is that a 3rd trailer?
yeah, but it's only
or the
there
14?
14
Oh,
days.
14 days.
I mean, provided this works with you,
Yeah,
like with the,
yeah, then we've got to check on.
It's a lot, I'm trying to keep up.
yeah.
Next on the agenda is ADUs.
I think that's an easier one. to cover.
I didn't have any
No questions.
questions.
The only question we moved on to ADUs.
Yeah, we're going there, yep.
The only question I
Chair
had.
hasn't brought it up.
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
That's what I'm looking at, yeah.
So C would be, yeah, C, reviewing bylaw on the ADUs units, shipping containers.
I can say the only question I've had that was around the RLS zones. And when I say, and I've said to a few different people in RLS zones, as soon as the Mattawa Conservation Authority gets their ducks in order and can actually provide reports, whether it is a good idea or a bad idea, it would be irresponsible, in my opinion, to allow a permanent structure as far as more ADUs on stressed lakes
Yeah.
without the science behind it first. So I think we actually have to hold tight on what is existing and allowed there, which is the
Secondary dwelling.
secondary dwelling unit, which has to be attached by wall. That's exactly what they can do now. I don't think we change that. And until such time as conservation authority, which we've asked for them, right, we're gonna work with them to try and put some polite pressure on to get us the study. That's my opinion, which I've explained to everybody, and nobody has seemed to have been able to come up with anything. That's unreasonable.
That's just for lakefront property.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So for any other property, if you have a dwelling, now it doesn't have to share a wall.
correct.
You can build a second
Yeah.
And the third,
building.
Yeah.
so again, currently not allowed, right?
The only thing allowed right now is a secondary dwelling. Secondary dwelling has to be attached by one wall. as
Right,
Councilor Grover
right.
was saying. Mhm.
Right.
I've received nothing but positive feedback on that, to be honest, so.
So if someone already has an ADU that was previously not legal, but now it is legal, right? So that again is the opposite of it's non-legal conforming now.
Like,
Which is
we're
not a
making up
bad,
words.
yeah, which is not a bad thing. We're just going to make sure that they have a permit and that everything is,
Absolutely, yes,
Yeah,
case
okay.
by case, property
Yeah.
by
Yeah,
property,
yeah.
every
Yeah,
property is gonna
okay.
have a different story.
right,
So it's impossible for us to blanket that answer.
right.
Every story is gonna, every property is gonna have. a
And our
different story.
go-to isn't remove it first and ask
No,
questions
no,
second.
no.
It's how do we work with the property
Yes,
owner
yes.
to
Yeah.
make sure that they can get a permit and that it can be compliance and then they have a.
And I know.
Which we've done. In the last 2 years, I think we've had 5 different properties where we've had to pass zoning bylaws or amendments or do minor variances to allow what they built without permits or
Yes,
without the
yeah,
proper
yeah.
permissions, and how we've made that.
When you get into
Work.
permits, I
Yeah.
guess then if there's no permits, then Mike gets into, you get
Mhm.
engineers and you let an engineer prove.
Yeah, whatever is required under the
Right.
building code,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
And I know, Mike, he looks for the least expensive options. for
Absolutely,
people,
yes,
So,
yeah. Definitely, we're all willing to work with them.
yes,
We will say, sometimes the least expensive option is still very expensive, but unfortunately our hands are tied.
yeah,
It has to conform with building code.
Right.
That's just how it goes.
Mhm.
yeah, but the township will work with you
Yeah.
if,
Yes.
Okay, shipping containers.
So the questions and the frequently asked questions. So if my lot is large enough, can I have 2 or more 8x20 shipping containers? And the property is yes. Each property still has lot coverage requirements. So as long as it doesn't exceed the lot coverage, you can. There's also requirements for the space between them, but those are certainly chief building official questions. When you get into looking at your property and what you want to do, it's always good to reach out to him. Larger shipping containers measuring 8x40 will require a building permit. Since I am not building the shipping container, will the cost of the permit be reduced to the necessary for an inspector to only attend the property and ensure satisfactory setbacks are being met? So under the Act, a building permit is not required for construction, but it also states that it's required when placing a building on a lot. So shipping containers over 161 square feet are buildings and have always required a permit. As such, are regulated by and subject to the building code. Staff have been doing some comparisons, but we've not brought any user fees. It will just be a nominal fee we will be proposing a nominal fee to council for the larger shipping containers.
When
And I
will
think
we-
that's the next question.
Sorry,
as
when
well.
do we discuss that?
Well, it hasn't been brought up because we're waiting for the bylaws to actually be passed so that we know what we're actually working with. We have done some research and some investigations on that, but it's until we know exactly what council will pass.
Yeah,
It's
'cause if they don't
hard for
pass-
us to make recommendations.
Right, because if they don't pass, there's no shipping containers on any lot.
Right, same as ADUs. If this bylaw doesn't pass, then you know,
Right.
we don't need to go into the fee schedule for
Right.
that. So we can propose all of these, but if something doesn't pass, there's no.
Yeah,
point
I
right.
mean, it
proposing
was
it.
suggested that it'd be a pretty low fee, and I don't disagree, which I don't think that's what I'm hearing. That is what I'm hearing from you as well, so.
Yeah.
That's good.
So just to be clear, there was a petition with 494 names on it that said not to pass any of these. So if we do not pass any of these, which I think we do have to take seriously as well, it means that trailers are illegal on all vacant lots,
Yeah.
ADUs, hunt camps, and shipping containers.
Yes.
Okay,
So then I just go to enforcement.
and then we just go to enforcement.
Okay, and I wasn't gonna typically speak to the,
I'm just saying, it's out there,
well,
right?
it is out there. I would just say, given what I was told when I was at the landfill, 494 signatures were signed, many under false pretenses, because it was false information being shared about what is in these bylaws. So I take it for what it's worth. I'm not trying to discount those that truly don't want any of these bylaws to be passed, and I'm not taking that away from them, but I don't believe that is 494 people that signed it. So not in the conversations I've had, but not with a number of people that after I've spent considerable time
Yeah.
providing
Me
additional
either.
information.
Me either,
Well,
but
lots of people said I have signed it, and now that I know what's in it, I'm comfortable with what it is, so.
okay.
Okay, so since many people already have shipping containers on the properties, what will be the process required to legalize their possession and the use of the shipping containers? Will existing shipping containers be deemed legal non-conforming? Again, a building permit was always required. The law just changed for the 8x20s, January 2024. So if there was a shipping container on a property, it always required a permit. So if they're on there without a permit, again, legal non-conforming, we can't blanket it. We need to look at each property case by case, but certainly willing to do that. With any property owner that wants to come in and have those discussions. And those are the shipping containers,
Oh,
and the
Sorry.
frequently asked questions.
just touching on Steve's about the painting and,
That's where she's
Yeah.
going.
oh, okay.
So in the recommendations and suggestions, I know we're all jumping, like we're just, hey, here's what we have. There were 2. So can the exemption from paint rust proofing for shipping containers be removed that are visible if they're not visible from the road? And can you paint a shipping container to permit the advertising of an on-site business? Although I would also suggest there were questions for on-site buildings and there were questions or businesses. And then there's also questions like if I wanted to put the tractor trailer with the Canadian Tire symbol, can I put that on my property and advertise for a business that's not on-site?
So I like shipping containers. I think they're an easy source for storage. I think they're fairly reasonable priced. I think they're fairly secure. I would rather see somebody shipping container than a bunch of junk on their front lawn.
As we all would, which is why this bylaw is in front of us.
Yeah, I'd like to see them in a rural zone, and I know you're gonna look at the size there for what we're discussing as well
Trail.
with a permit for a non-dwelling. But I don't know, I think if people see it from the road, I think it's, comes down to that beautification of our township to slap some paint on it. It's pretty low investment and take
Right.
4 or 5 hours to paint a sea can. If you can't see it from the road, and then whatever, right? Like it's.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are the same, is if you can see it, like the advertising from overseas and all that, just cover it up, uniform color, whatever the sea container color is, uniform it.
Yeah, I like a uniform color. I mean,
We're not gonna say colors, but
I prefer I liked the natural colors, although I get it's very subjective to say it, or a neutral color. Super subjective, so that's not necessarily fair when writing bylaws, so I think it has to be a uniform color, so all one color. If somebody wants to do hot pink, I guess that's what we're dealt with, because people that didn't like being stuck with the neutral or neutral color. No.
factory uniform color.
But I mean, we're not telling people what color siding they can put on their house.
Right.
Or what
No,
color
no,
cover to buy
absolutely.
for their driveway or whatever, right?
And I think if we can't see it, I don't care.
Right.
Like.
No, I can't
Yeah,
see
it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
so your
yeah.
neighbor, and
Yeah, yeah.
trying to clean things up.
Yeah.
A lot of the issues when we go to enforcement are by complaint.
Right.
So, I mean, if we receive a complaint because somebody's been, like, they can see the shipping container, that's when we're gonna go out to enforce it. But if they can't see it, they
Yeah.
likely won't
Yeah.
be calling
Right.
with a complaint.
So
Or
not
writing a
visible
letter.
by the road is what we're.
Yes. Yeah, I guess you're gonna have to specify.
Yeah,
road.
is it road or neighbor? Because
Well,
Mm,
you could have two houses that aren't visible at the road, but they can see each other
in the backyard to your neighbor. So-
This isn't about me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess visible. I mean, whether it's your neighbor and doesn't
Yeah,
like
I
it,
think it's visible too.
it doesn't, not, yeah, I wouldn't say from a roadway, I'd just say visible.
That's that's tough, because it actually impacts me, because the trailer that I can see is not visible by the road,
Right,
but I don't, I'm not,
yeah.
But you're not
Like
the
a-
only one that has that issue.
no, I get it, but I'm like, I just kind of, if it's not, like, I'm trying to make it fair for even staff to try and enforce, to be like, so what happens if a tree falls down and I can see my neighbors, anyway, it's a coat of paint, it's not the end of the world if that actually happens, I guess, so.
Can you leave it, but it's still just based on complaint?
Mhm.
So nobody, if nobody writes in a letter, it has to be a signed letter for us to take
If you
action.
get a complaint, then it has to be uniform color or,
You have
I
to
mean, that's
investigate.
such a small
Yeah.
correction for people, right? Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not really.
And we have policies about vexatious and malicious complaints as well. So
Right.
we'll certainly be looking
Okay.
at that. It's not our intent to go out and make people's life.
No, I
No,
mean,
no, yeah.
we will get these questions.
Yes. But can they paint advertising on it?
No, I'm not a fan.
can
That's pretty consistent with most.
they put up a sign on their property advertising?
There are rules for signs.
Wouldn't
So
it-
if you have your business, if you have a business on your property, you can put up a sign. It goes under the building.
How
code,
big,
goes-
where, all that stuff is in there?
Yeah, I don't
How
know. all
So I'm
that
sure
off the
this would
top of
go
my head.
the same, would it not?
Just, I've been asked this before too, so that's why I'm just gonna ask, like, so you mean a business that's like registered as a business on a business property, or like a business that's run out of a home?
Mm.
So there's different rules.
Okay,
So like a home-based business typically has like a smaller sign that you're allowed. So we'd have to look at the sign by law and go into all of those details.
So if we were to say that it had to comply with a sign bylaw for home or commercial business,
But do we know?
I don't know, I'm
Do we
not
know that
familiar with
bylaw
what it
reads?
is, so.
Yeah, so if I am running a homestead business,
You can have a sign, but do you need to paint your container?
I might.
Mhm.
Could you attach it to the side of your container?
That's your question.
Well, I know, but that's the.
I don't know.
That's what I was getting.
Yeah, I
Yes.
don't know the rules, so I have to check.
Okay. We'll check and get back to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
C, I guess. Are we done with these C containers?
Fine. I don't know if there's more
Alright.
questions.
No,
I didn't have any more.
no.
Okay, accessory structures,
We did not receive any questions for accessory structures.
perfect. And then hunt caps.
Sorry, I had to find it now.
Went back.
Okay, so the first one, what is the purpose of this bylaw? So hunt camps are currently not a permitted use anywhere in the township of township of Bonfield. So this bylaw is to actually permit the hunt camps on lots that are greater than 10 hectares or 25 acres in size. So in none of the existing predated zoning bylaws were hunt camps ever identified. The purpose of this is just to say, of course, people hunt in Bonfield, so let's make that legal. So how does it benefit the community? So subject to appropriate building permits, hunt camps will be recognized as legal permitted uses to help safeguard everyone in the township. Hunt camps can support passive recreation activities and a sustainable northern lifestyle. Next question is, how does it affect the individual who presently owns and uses their hunt camp? So the owners of hunt camps comprising of a use that is not currently permitted anywhere in the township will be required to speak to the township to determine the best course of action for the property. Again, it comes into the legal non-conforming and then to determine what we need to.
So do we
Look-
actually have building permits out as hunt camps?
I have seen what we did fix one property in 2023 that was a permit issued as a hunt camp.
So how can a permit be issued if we didn't?
If it was illegal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's-
So
Can't
we
answer that
clearly
'cause we
stated
weren't
that
here.
in
I
the bylaw.
wasn't here
Right.
when that occurred.
Fair enough.
Yes, so one of the workarounds that was used in order to allow hunting camps, which was still not legal, was to classify them as private clubs, but the definition of a private club was still an organization. So you had to have an organized group with, charters and everything else, and then you were a private group that you could, if you had a large tract of land, but the large tract of land was never defined. So if somebody did come in that had, an organized hunt camp, like a group, and they were all organized, and they would be able to get a permit, but it would actually be a permit to have a private club.
Yeah, like I said,
But we don't have any of those.
Yeah, I'd have to go back to each of the permits. Again, it's gonna be case by case, right?
Right,
Property by
right.
property.
So, but if somebody built a seasonal dwelling.
Yep.
With 400 and some square feet and with the most basic of. Like, that's a seasonal dwelling, whether they actually sleep in there and then go hunting that's up to them, like, that's totally fine.
yeah, no, I was
structure.
just curious, like, there's never no hunt camp, but we have permits out as hunt camps, like,
Right.
That's not on this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then we have a number of hunt camps and we've heard it, so if, again, I get it's case by case, so I'll generalize. If the hunt camp predated our existing bylaws in 1990,
It's legal non-conforming.
then it is potentially legal
Potential, yes.
Potentially
Potentially.
legal non-conforming. If it was built 3 years ago and been used as a hunt camp, it is potentially not legal non-conforming.
Correct.
And don't get me wrong, I always thought it was I didn't ever agree with the route, like, we live in Bonfield, rural,
Yeah.
tons of land, like, we
Absolutely.
should have had hunt camps,
Mhm.
but
All along, I don't know why we didn't.
Mhm.
That's why we're fixing it.
yeah, no, absolutely.
Um,
So that answers question 34 and 35 and 36. 36 asked if they'll be grandfathered. Again, we can't grandfather, it's legal non-conforming, we need to see. And then 37, if hunt camps are not.
Sorry, Nikki, can I pause right there for a minute? Just because we talked about a special agreement for the trailers on the waterfront And in my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, the difference is the trailer is a structure on itself. The hunt camp is a permitted, needs to be a permitted structure so that we can ensure its safety. So trailers are built to a certain specification. Hunt camps that have not been built to a certain specification does get an automatic grandfather. People are sleeping there and it's about safety.
So
Absolutely.
again, that falls, you come talk to the office.
Absolutely.
And I would think, Mike goes out, tells you, you need
Easiest way to
you need an
comply.
engineer to. or
Yeah.
does,
Whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Easiest way to come in to comply and get you're approved.
And we did
Keep
do
going.
that over the last 2 years. We have done that for certain properties where they did come in, they had to get the drawings, they had to do, and I mean, it took, I want to say almost 4 months. And then we got the property legal, right?
Right.
And council was certainly willing to work with everybody and pass
Right.
an amending
Sure.
bylaw, so.
Okay, thank you, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay. So if hunt camps are not on private land, that is less than the prescribed acreage, but adjacent to crown land, will they still be allowed? The answer would be, it has the acreage in the bylaw is the 10 hectares. So that is anything less than that would need a discussion with the office and likely a minor variance in order to bring that
Okay,
into
well,
compliance. But it would, again, case by case, if somebody's has a permitted building and then they are using it for hunting.
I just say, you have a 3-season, it's
Yeah.
not called a hunt camp, you can go on less, right?
Yeah, so for seasonal dwellings are not permitted in the rural zone. So
Right.
it depends. There's so many ifs and whats and.
Are we married to 10 hectares? I like 20 acres.
That is 10 hectares. Well,
20 acres?
25.
Mhm.
I like 20 acres though, not 25.
Me too.
I think 20
I'm
acres
fine with it, yeah.
is.
When I look around other municipalities, I mean, gosh, I think Chisholm's is 100
100.
acres or something like
Yeah.
that.
You
And
know, these are 50.
yeah,
Yeah, I
those
mean,
are
you're,
50.
Is
you
it a
start
super-
getting under 25, I mean, it's, you're shooting guns and you're loud and you're
Yeah,
So you think 20 acres is? too
25.
small?
I think 25 is a good number.
Steve, you with me with the 20?
I don't want bullets coming across my property, but I don't know. I know somebody beside me hunts. They don't have a building on it. I don't believe. I've never been on his property, but he's got a super small strip of land. And he's shooting guns 10 feet from my property line.
Which he's allowed to do, right?
Yep, as long as you're shooting in a safe direction and manner and. But I mean, when you're hunting, you're shooting at a running deer or whatever you're shooting at. I mean, the more you narrow that land.
I mean, my only experience on this is not within this municipality, but the hunt camp that I go to is on 20 acres. So I've never felt unsafe on 20, but that's the only experience I can draw.
Is
on
it
this.
surrounded by crown land or?
On one side is actually a house, and then on the other side is crown land, and that's crown land on everything except for one side, which is actually a house.
Whatever, in 2025, it's just, I wouldn't go under 20, put it that way.
Yeah, I don't think I would go under 20. I guess if someone had less than 25, they could bring it, and that would potentially be a minor variance, right? Yeah,
But,
Okay.
why set the rules if we're gonna give everybody minor?
then let's
variances?
make it 20.
And then at 20, can you get a minor variance?
No.
No,
That's for other people to decide at this point.
so if you're gonna go minor variance, right, just leave it at 25, and like,
All right.
I like the 20. I just, to be honest, but
Come on, one more. Dan, 20.
sure, we'll go with 20.
I think we should go with 20.
The difference of 5 acres.
Yeah.
I'm not above being compromised.
Okay, can we change that to 20?
all right, 15 it is. No.
No, 20, 20 's that's fine.
I have to write a number of
Resolu-
things on the
motions, yeah.
motions now, so I'll need a minute.
You on number 7 now?
Yeah.
Resolutions.
Resolutions to be considered
Mhm.
for adoption.
Just let me know when we're on 8 and I'll go get the mayor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll just wait for Nikki to. Wow. I'm pretty sure they were at that. I ate this turkey this weekend. Had it twice. Oh, and then lunch. I had a little bit, that was it. Cody took a turkey and he cut the spine out of it and flipped it and
He
flattened it.
spatchcocked
Yeah, yeah, and smoked it that way.
Was it good?
Oh, it was really good.
Yeah, because you get it even, then you press the breastbone down,
Yeah.
and you make it nice and flat. I do chicken under a brick like that. And then so, because it's just flat and
Under a
even.
brick?
Chicken under a brick.
He said it, and it was so juicy when he cut into it, the butter like just exploded.
Yeah,
out.
yeah. Does he do the injection?
No,
Oh, he doesn't inject. it.
no, we don't inject. There's no safe injections. No, he just put butter underneath the skin with
Oh.
herbs and stuff. I'm not I mean, I like turkey once a year.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I like turkey.
I end up eating it 4 meals in a row. Yeah. Especially when you have like 30-pound turkey. That's right.
We did Latin Easter.
What's that?
Oh.
We did Latin Easter.
What's that?
Oh, it's not Easter at all.
So
was
every
lots.
day. An everyday dinner?
And people over in River, but
Nice.
Mexican rice and chorizo and
Mm.
Nice. Yeah, Peter and I went down to Olive. Yeah, they had a Remington 170. Like brand new, like it's you. You can't tell it's you. Right. Like it's unbelievable. Nice. Yeah, so I put that. I'll take one of those. Yeah, exactly. Now you can you can get a slug net for that. Eh? Yeah. So Cody bought one. Yeah. It's got rifling in it, so it's.
I think on a 20-acre property, I don't think I need slugs. It's when they're really far away.
So actually, you know, that's the shotgun perfect for a 20-acre property. Like if slug. Yeah. Perfect for a 20-acre property because it only accurate for 110 feet. Yeah, yeah.
we're writing the amendments to bring them back to council tomorrow.
No,
No.
no.
How quickly
If
can you
you-
work?
If you guys approve them. If the committee approves, then I can have everything to the first meeting in May. So corporate services minutes would be first on the agenda, and then the bylaws as amended would be at that meeting for adoption.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, when you get the hunting, you know, break it down rifle, shotgun or bow, like a bow, you could have 5 acres. It's a bow with a, but then shoot a deer, it runs off your property, then what do you do?
You go get it, it's just the law.
But, yeah, but people get sticky about it.
But you technically, you don't have to be a hunt camp to discharge a firearm.
No, I get it. It's just, like I said, there's so many variables to that.
You guys could go on
Right.
till the cows come home,
Yeah.
So you're better off with a bigger plot of land and,
if that's, yeah, because it's like 1,500 yards. Or sorry, 1,500 feet
50 feet.
would be your depth, essentially, right?
Yeah,
On-
the depth,
on
yeah,
20 acres.
yeah.
Not many things shoot that far. Especially if there's boys.
Mary's doing back there. I'm gonna check. Did she possibly have design? She's probably done that by now.
Just watching the meeting.
Probably. That's what I'd be doing.
Somebody log in and see if there's 2 viewers or 1.
Easter was good, eh, here? The kids?
Yeah, it was-
Yeah, it was good turnout.
They
Was
did a
fun.
really good job.
I think we
Yeah.
had 6 bags left, we had 80, so.
Yeah, that's great. They're all so
Well,
cute.
It's growing. We gotta make more next year. We came up with a plan. I think we're gonna make like 40 or 50 bags that don't have food in them
Oh, yeah.
to use them last.
Right.
So if we make like 80 or 90 bags and all the kids come and we're out, then we'll start using these like reserve bags that are just toys and crayons and stuff like that. So the kids still get something. And
at one point, the bags were going fast, and I'm like, is this all we have?
And Mark did a fantastic job with the photos.
Yeah,
He
yes,
did
yeah.
Such a good
On the
job.
Facebook.
Yeah.
On Facebook. Wow. Sound like a grandmother. On the Facebook.
yeah, no, it was a good event.
Yeah, no, it was really good. I mean, well attended.
Yeah.
Even with the poor weather.
Yeah.
The weather wasn't that
It's
bad.
so nice to have the covered drink though.
I already told Nikki that all those tables have to be to go.
We need new table.
Just a
No.
grant.
Not from the rec fund.
No, that's
Nothing left.
that's kind of stuff that grants. Just watch for a grant. And it's,
Well,
Or
I mean, we
just
only
watch
need to buy,
Canadian Tire, they come up for $60.
yeah, we only need to buy 5 tables.
well, it's only 5 days.
Yeah. Maybe the hot chocolate could have its own table.
Even the
It
one,
would cost us more to rent the grant than to buy the tables. It's
Right.
$50.
even the one plastic one that's kind of half broken is one of mine that I've left there for 4 years. And
Okay.
now it's kind of half broken.
Are you ready?
We have all the tables.
I think so.
All right.
Put your thinking caps on to make sure I captured everything. So the first resolution is that the Corporate Services Committee recommends to council to amend the proposed 2025-11 bylaw as follows. That hunt camps be permitted on a minimum of 20 acres of land. That shipping containers, 8 by 20, be acceptable storage sheds with a licensed trailer, provided the other zoning and building code regulations permit such. I will confirm that, so you'll get that in the report for the next meeting. And I think that was all for 2011. So ADUs, accessory, and then the hunt camps, we're changing those. So, and then the second resolution would be for bylaw 2025-17 be as amended. So this is short-term rentals, that the license fee be reduced to $1,000 with the applicant paying the cost of any inspections above 2. And that the annual renewal fee be reduced to $700. And that the applications with bookings in 2025 are to submit the application within 30 days of adoption. And then the third motion would be that bylaw 2025-16 for trailers be amended to include up to 3 non-habitable portable trailers for the licensing season. So I will find the proper wording on that.
Yeah.
I need to look into that, but you understand. That to reflect fairness to long existing trailers, a program for temporary use to a maximum of 10 years under a site-specific bylaw, and the applicant entering into an agreement be approved. Be created.
Right. Do we need to be more specific there? Maximum of 2 trailers,
I can, maximum, yeah.
maximum of 2 trailers, minimum of 75 feet apart, if that's what we all. plan on.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
2 trailers,
And then with
75
appropriate
feet
And
apart.
septic.
That's
setbacks.
septic. What year did you want the septic to be approved? Do you want that in 2025? That they have to change the septic? I mean, it's for the lake, it's for the, so by the, like, October 2025? Or when I missed the date, when you, or
Yeah,
missed the
we never really
timeline.
set a
Yeah,
date.
we never really did
No.
something. So
Okay.
class 1 and class 2, so that's an outhouse and a gray bed,
Mhm.
right? Gray water
Gray.
bed.
Gray water, yep.
Like, that's not crazy for somebody to try and.
No, and outhouses, you can move it, I mean, or build a new one back.
Well, we're doing that for the rural trailers, right?
Like,
Yeah, so then, yes, so for the lake, it would be the same. right?
yeah,
Yeah, we're just,
just trying to figure out a timeline.
Okay.
because there's not, I mean, there's an expense, but not an exorbitant, it's not like a $20,000 septic
Right,
that they're putting in, right?
Right.
So.
They don't have to, they can. but
They can.
have to.
Well,
It's
we would love the two
encouraged.
of them if they
Yeah,
did, for
it's
sure, but.
encouraged. Time for us.
Yeah, then I think it's fair that they have that as a minimum by October 2025. I think
Okay.
that's not unreasonable.
yeah, that gives.
If
them
it was
a-
if it had to be a full septic, then I'd be like, okay, we gotta give them a little bit more time because
Right.
everybody has $20,000 sitting around, so. But
Okay. $600 each trailer annually.
I definitely don't.
Jason, I think might have his way.
And if we're getting into the detail, you said that they can replace, but because they're not going to be legal non-conforming, it's just going to be under the agreement. They can replace like for like. Under legal non-conforming, you can replace like for like. So same size.
Yeah.
Sure.
Cause yeah.
Yeah.
Try to stick with some kind of rules.
But if they sell the property,
yeah, it's
Oh, yeah.
non-transferable.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, so if 2 years later they sell a property, the new owner does not, that agreement does not transfer to the new owner. The new owner does not get to keep the trailer on the vacant property. Right?
Yeah,
correct.
I agree.
Okay, so I can read that one again. That the bylaw 2025-16 for trailers be amended to include up to 3 non-habitable portable trailers for the licensing season. That to reflect fairness to long existing trailers are programmed for temporary use to a maximum of 10 years under a site-specific bylaw and the applicant enters into an agreement be created with a maximum of 2 trailers 75 feet apart, that the septic approval by October 2025, $600 each for each trailer annually, and can replace like for like trailer, and that this agreement would not be transferable.
I think that captured it from my perspective.
Yeah.
Don't have to mess around, but-
Did I capture everything we kind of,
I think
I think so.
Okay. so Chair, I'll need a, do you want
So
me to
just-
just
yeah,
write
just-
mover and second?
Yeah, move, you guys move it in second and Nikki will read it.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Are you sure? Okay, okay. Moved by Donna, seconded by Jason. I'm sorry. That Corporate Services Committee recommends to council to amend the proposed 2025-11 bylaw as follows. That hunt camps be permitted on a minimum of 20 acres of land. That shipping containers 8 by 20 be acceptable for storage sheds with a licensed trailer, provided the other zoning and building code regulations permit such.
All in favor? Carried.
I'll have you sign in a moment.
Mover and seconder, Steve.
Okay, moved by Counselor Steve Featherstone, seconded by Counselor Jason Corbett. That the Corporate Services Committee recommends to council to amend bylaw 2025-17 as follows, that the license be reduced. This is regarding short-term rentals, so that the license be reduced to $1,000 with the applicant paying the cost of any inspections above 2 inspections, and that the annual renewal fee be reduced to $700 annually, and that the applications with bookings in 2025 submit an application within 30 days of adoption of the bylaw.
All in favor? Carried.
I'm just noting that down in conflict.
Moving to seconder,
So moved by Counselor Corbett, seconded by Counselor Featherstone, that the bylaw 2025-16 for trailers be amended to include up to 3 non-habitable portable trailers for the licensing season. that to reflect fairness to long existing trailers, a program for temporary use to a maximum of 10 years under a site-specific bylaw, and the applicant enters into an agreement be created with a maximum of 2 trailers per property, 75 feet apart, that the septic approval by October 2025, that $600 for each trailer annually, and you can replace the trailer like for like, and the agreement is non-transferable.
All in favor? Carried.
While you're doing that, just for clarity on the hunt camps, I just want to make sure that people are aware. This only has to do with the structure of a hunt camp, nothing to do with hunting activities on properties or size of properties, only the hunt camp itself. So
Right.
I just want to make sure that that was clear for everybody watching.
All right, resolution to be considered for adoption.
I think we can get.
You can get in there, please. At 9:09.
No, they're still here.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Correspondence, none. Number 9, adjournment, moved by Jason, second by Neri, that this meeting be adjourned at 9:09. All in favor?
It's a good meeting. You opened it, you closed it. There, yeah,
I'm gonna text Nikki and say, did you guys leave me?
yeah. Come out, the lights are off.
The alarm.
I sent Alice back to see.
That's it now?
That's it. You worked hard on this one, eh? Pretty good.